Okay. Now let's see last part. Well, in this part, we'll be looking at how JUnit tests for an exception. Alright? So if you write JUnit file or use JUnit file, you will encounter this kind of code, right? So if you use JUnit 4 and you are writing for the test that expect a method or expect the test method, if you expect a test method to throw an exception, in JUnit 4, you write the test method normally, right? If from that method you expect an exception to be thrown out, then you just write before the head of the method which kind of exception is expected to be thrown out of the method. Okay, so in this example, in the first method, it's divided by 0. So my addTest tag will mention that it's expecting arithmetic exception. Okay, we write arithmetic exception dot class. Alright, and this one, we do not define if arithmetic exception will be thrown. So this one will, well, the actual code actually generate an exception. So the program will fail to run. And since we do not tell it that we are expecting exception, this will not be a successful test. Alright, as can be seen here, test without expected will generate, will stop running. And right, but test with expected, since we define that it's expecting an exception, so this test pass because the program is doing what we expect it to do. That is throwing exception. Okay. And what about the last one? This one, the actual exception is divided by 0. Alright, arithmetic exception. But we define in the addTest tag that we are expecting array index out of bound exception, which is a different type of exception. Therefore, the test here fails. Alright, because we do not actually get the expected type of exception being thrown out of the method. Okay, for that, using JUnit 4. But, well, I think very few of us use JUnit 4 now. Most of us is using JUnit 5. Most of us are using JUnit 5. So let's see the code for JUnit 5 for testing and expecting exception. Right, so let's open the code. Alright, in the code for JUnit 5, what we use is we use asset throws. Alright, asset throws receive 2 arguments. The first one is the expected type of exception that's supposed to be thrown. Alright, and the second argument is the actual execution that the exception may come out of it. Alright, so in this case, the that we use as the second argument is of type executable. All right. And the code, we specify it this way, meaning the execution run this sentence. All right. And so if an exception gets thrown out of the execution, then the variable let's zoom in again. Then the variable will be of type arithmeticException.class. Okay, so stands for execution, which can include many lines of code. And if the code produces exception, will become that exception class that we can detect using asset throws. Okay? So in this case, divide by 0 is given to asset throws. All right, for test number 1. And for test number 2, this execution is given to asset throw. All right. And this one, the execution is actually very similar to test number 1, but I do not use the executable variable. Okay. I just do the execution. Okay. But it's the same thing because this will become an executable object. Okay? This will become an executable object. And if an exception gets thrown, then it will become the exception class. Okay? And the last example shows that the executable variable can include many lines of execution. Okay? So we can have many lines and then just use as the second argument for asset throws. Can contain many lines. Okay? So in the actual run here, I can try running the test. See what happens. All right. So, oops. I think it's because of Gradle. All right. I think it's because of Gradle that it doesn't run well. So, let's normally you should be able to run it as JUnit test by right-clicking and run it. But I have set my Gradle to run a program. So I guess I'll have to use the Gradle command to run the test. So first I will run to clean everything, and then I'll run Gradle test. Which I already defined. All right, the Gradle test will actually run JUnit. All right, the lines below here in my project are just for testing graphics, for programs that has graphics. But my test script run test from JUnit. Okay, so it should run. Okay, let's see if my test exception can be run. and it says one test failed. Okay, one test failed. In my test exception, well, in fact, it was written such that it will fail because I test 2 against 4 here. It will always fail, alright? So, if you test by Gradle, the test report will be in the build folder, alright? And is the test report, I think. Hang on. Oops. Sorry. Alright. Open VM. Let's say Chrome. So my test actually fails 1, but otherwise the test passes. Alright, just 1 fail. That is the one that I intend to fail. Otherwise, these all produce arithmetic exception, and as a throws receive that exception. Alright, that means we expect the throw, and it actually throw what we expect. Okay? Right, so that's the example.